Click play and call it work.
Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and welcome to this week's Sit and Talk. This is the show where you ask us questions about anything you like, usually miniature wargaming or business related, but really can go on any tangent that you would like, so you can get to know us as content producers better, if you so care. If you don't care, well then don't watch this video. There will have been battle reports that you can go and watch today, as well as other shows, as well as quick tips and other things. Doesn't matter. If you want your questions answered, make sure you leave it in the comment section below. But next week is going to be Josh, so you're going to leave comments for him. Now, if you want to talk to me to reply to things I talk about today, then start your comment with Matt. And if you want to ask a question to Josh that he'll answer next week, then start it with Josh. And then make sure you thumb up any other questions that you think would be interesting to hear from Josh next week as well. The first 30 minutes of this are free, and then the second 30 minutes are bonus footage for our Vault members at the link below. So let's just jump right into this. Unpure. Matt, what campaigns do you have swirling around your brain at the moment, and which one can't you wait to put on the table? I always have several ideas going on, and then they morph constantly. You can just ask Lee, who I get to make custom stuff for it. Things change right up to the moment of filming. Obviously, right now we're in the middle of finishing up Gorka Morka. We're going to be filming that for at least a couple more weeks. I want to get to at least week 6. I want to make sure that it finishes on a good note, on what feels like the mobs got to an appropriate size, even though there's no real story arc for our Gorka Morka campaign. The one that I'm working on right now has changed a lot. It's one involving Tyrannids and a Gene Stealer cult. I don't want to give too many details away, but it will probably, if it doesn't change, involve Space Marines, but not as you would normally see them. And it'll be like a narrative style, but with experience. I don't know what I can compare it to. It'll be like the Death Watch campaign in the sense that there'll be a lot of upgrading and new attributes and new items, but not as small scale as a Death Watch, where there's just a handful of guys. It'll be a slightly larger scale, like several hundred points to even bigger as it grows. But it'll be a co-op one, or it'll be one versus me. None of those details are in place, but basically, I actually got an artist to create a rendering of the planet that it's going to be on. I've got a bit of a story that's brewing, and these things constantly change. But I do have Adam from Greenleaf Terrain working on the terrain for it, and I think it's going to look fantastic. It's going to be jungle terrain as well as some other stuff, but it's like alien jungle, not just your typical here's some trees on a green mat. So I'm really, really, really looking forward to that. That's always my favorite component, is to get an idea for a campaign and then actually get a new set of terrain built for it. Like the Gorka Morka campaign, how Adam then made the terrain for that. Oh, I'm just in love with that terrain. And we're still experimenting with these 2x4 boards as well. Unfortunately, the ones that he built for the Gorka Morka one, they've warped a little bit, so they don't line up as nicely as I'd like, so the black line becomes a little more pronounced. And he used kiln-dried wood. It might just be that he didn't put enough braces underneath. And this is all per my instructions with him, so it's not his fault per se. We're both kind of figuring this out. And so these ones are going to have more braces, they're going to have more support, and he's using even higher quality wood, because I really want to figure out these battle mats like this one from Frontline Gaming. They're awesome, I love them, but the problem with them is they're not three-dimensional and they're not modular. And so we're slowly trying to experiment with these 2x4 modular boards to get all that in. So we have that campaign. I want to do another Death Watch campaign. That one was just because it was so popular, and we had a lot of fun doing it too. So I'd love to do a continuation. I don't know if I can have as many guys in it as I would like, just because we're so busy with so many different shows. And the Gorka Morka, it's been a big strain to have like a day where everybody's available except for Dave. So it's been harder to film it that way, where it's easier if you just have the GM and one other player, then you can find those days a lot simpler. So I do want to do another Death Watch. I know people have asked about, and I think there's even a question about the Tzinch campaign that I had kind of started filming. I had gotten that terrain made. That one's on hold. I like the idea behind it, but I'm not excited to do it right now. So that's not coming out anytime soon. I've been reading the Beast Arises books. I'm on book 2 for that series, and so that's making me want to do orc stuff. But honestly, there's all these little ideas that float around in my head, and then when I say, okay, now I need to do a narrative campaign, I grab it, whichever one sounds the coolest, and I start to develop it, and then it changes and changes and changes and changes, because I look at customer feedback to what we're currently doing. Like this Tyrannid one that I had the idea for, originally was going to be designed so it could kind of run like Gorka Morka, where each player had a group of Tyrannids, and I even had a fluffy reason why these Tyrannids would be fighting each other on this planet. But that's evolved into turning it more into an older style narrative campaign, but with the newer style Deathwatch XP kind of stuff, but actually improving on that system a lot. And I was going to have it then be humans versus Tyrannids with 2 players and me GMing, but then it just keeps evolving. And in the end, I have the idea for what I want the campaign to be like, but the end result will be different than what I'm even thinking right now by the time we go to start filming it, which will probably be in about 2 or 3 weeks. But you won't see it till probably August, because Dave has been working on his 40k Rejects narrative campaign, which will be going out once Gorka Morka is finished. So I'm pretty excited for that one. I'm a big 40k Rejects fan. So, yeah, there's a little peek into what is going on in here, which is just all over the place. Miso, Matt, hope you're well, and third time lucky with the questions, I hope. Well, looks like we got it. Sorry, can't be a Vault member anymore as finance is not so good, but we'll sign up when things clear a bit. No problem. Thank you for your past support and your current support and putting comments and stuff. 1, are you excited about the new editions of War Machine? Will you be getting out your Khador again and doing some battle reports as now Jacks have been improved so you can play Jack armies? I'm excited for it, but not in the way that you'd think. I'm not necessarily excited to go and try War Machine, although I might. It's more I'm excited just to have something to inject some interest into the game. We've been trying to do War Machine battle reports for years now, and they just haven't seemed to have caught hold on our audience like the Games Workshop games have. Even Fantasy, even Age of Sigmar. And so we're trying to, hopefully Mark III will give it that new injection, because I'll be honest with you, I've even been considering cutting War Machine content because it's hard. We're spread too thin. So it's not because War Machine is not good. War Machine is a great game. Even Mark II is a great game. Mark III, a lot of people are worried about, but I think it's, from the changes that I've seen, that I've looked at, I think it's going to be a great update to the game. And Privateer Press is really good. I was there for the transition from Mark I to Mark II, and they're really good at getting things updated, getting the cards updated. Not like Games Workshop when they get a new edition of a game and then it takes like 3 years for 80% of the books to get updated, and there's all that power creep in the meantime. I trust Privateer Press to do a good job with the game aspect of it. And so but I have been thinking just about the popularity hasn't been really good enough to really continue covering it. So Mark III is going to be the do or die. We're going to be doing a lot of coverage on it, more than we do with War Machine right now, with reviews and battle reports and whatever else we can do with it. We've pre-ordered all the new stuff. Quirk's getting all ramped up for it. And we have another couple guys in on it as well. Steve and Josh will both be getting in on it. And whether I will as well will just be a matter of time, because my time gets filled up a lot with the 40k and 30k stuff, especially because I run a lot of the narrative campaigns. So I'm excited for it, but more from a business point of view than from being excited to try War Machine. So 2, apparently X-Wing has just now displaced 40k as the biggest miniatures game in the US. Do you have any thoughts on this? First off, I think I know what you're referring to, the studies that have been shown, and I disagree. I don't necessarily think that those studies are correct. They're based on a lot of opinions and a lot of polling different distributors and things. The problem is X-Wing and 40k are vastly different in what they are as a product. It's like saying board games sell more than 40k, because they probably do, or even going even further from that tangent, video games sell more than 40k, which they do. It's a different audience. X-Wing, as much as it caters to the miniature wargamer, and I know that because I've played it and I love it, and we have guys here that obviously play it and love it, but because the hobby aspect is not there, in other words, the miniatures come pre-painted and there's not a lot of really area to create terrain, to create custom models, and to do much outside of what the game is. It's that hybrid thing. It's a hybrid board game / miniature game. It's simpler than a miniature game, but more complex than a board game, and more expensive than a board game, but much less expensive than a miniature game. And so it tends to do well with either more casual players, tournaments as well, because of the amount of people that can get into it. And so whether it sales, it depends what you even mean that has it displaced 40k. Does it have more players, or is it selling more models in revenue? Those are the things that we don't actually have an answer for, and I don't think we'd ever have an answer for, because the Fantasy Flight Games doesn't release those numbers, and that would be the only real way to tell. And even Games Workshop doesn't release the numbers of 40K sales in the U.S. They just tell you their overall revenue in the U.S. or actually in North America and in continental Europe and those kind of things. Now, and that's not to say that X-Wing isn't a great game. It's not popular. It is super popular. It has been selling a lot, but just that it's different. It's a different product. I realize that it can be said for any miniature war game, but like War Machine, Infinity, Malifaux, all these other games, they compete with the hobby aspect of Games Workshop because those players will invest time in assembling and painting, converting, making terrain, all that kind of stuff. Whereas X-Wing doesn't compete with that. Like somebody can be a 40K player and just spend a couple $100 on X-Wing and be able to play that game, and it doesn't take away much of the hobby time from 40K. And so it's hard to say how it could overtake because it's such a good, and that's why it's so good. I'm not saying that Fantasy Flight Games is doing something wrong here. I think they're doing something absolutely right. They're filling a niche that had never been filled before, except maybe the older with like the AT-43, where they had pre-painted models, but it was just different. They used a good IP, they made a great game that was nice and simple, and then they had actually good models come out that were decently priced and painted. And so you put all those together and they were able to really hit that one out of the ballpark, and they've managed to maintain it somehow, even though they've gone from the more popular models to more obscure references in the lore of Star Wars. And that obviously wouldn't attract as many of the new players because they don't necessarily recognize some of those other ships. So it's a great niche that they're filling. It does compete with 40K because any dollar somebody spends on one product is a dollar they don't spend on another, but it doesn't compete with it in the same way that other companies like Privateer Press, Corvus Belli, Weird Miniatures, these ones compete with them, where they're directly competing with the time a player has to get into the hobby. There's a bit of time lost because if they're playing X-Wing, they're not playing 40K. But it's just, I just think it's different. Now, this is totally from an outsider's point of view. I don't have access to the knowledge of the Games Workshop board and the people who look at all the numbers, or the Fantasy Flight Games. I don't know their numbers, and so very well could be overtaking and kind of displacing 40K, but I doubt that. Just because of what it is, it doesn't satisfy the itch. I like to talk about itches, maybe not always, it's something more recent that I started to say. Like I've had people say, well, will playing the video game Total War Warhammer reduce sales of Age of Sigmar or Warhammer Fantasy Battle miniatures because they're too busy playing the video game? And I would say, well, no, because I play video games and I'm into miniatures as well. They're two separate things. It's like the one scratches one itch, but definitely doesn't scratch another. Even though the computer game can get better terrain and all the animations and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't get the same feel as playing the game in person with somebody. And so it's just a different thing. So yes, it affects, but not as much as a direct competitor would, where somebody's like, I'm tired of 40K, but I still like miniature wargaming, so I'm going to go play War Machine because their rules are better. So that's a direct competitor. That's a direct replacement for the one product to the other. Whereas a computer game or even Star Wars X-Wing is not a direct replacement. So there's my thoughts there. And number 3 from Miso Miso, how is the business going and what are future plans at the moment? We never get to hear about this anymore, as you only do the odd sit and talk once a month. Once every 6 or 7 weeks now, actually. The business is doing great. We're growing. We've had good growth over the past 2 or 3 years, and this year is looking good too. I'm always looking for ways to grow it faster. Their current challenges would be in trying to expand. Like for the longest time, obviously, the business has been just about Dave and I. And I know some people that have joined MiniWarGaming in the past year or two will think, well, no, we've always had other people, like all your other gamers. But Dave and I have been doing videos for the longest, and so our videos tend to get more views and more vault signups just because we've got that established relationship and also more experience. So the current challenge is getting people like Steve, Quirk, and Josh to build that same kind of audience and build the same skill set. They're doing a great job. I think those guys are awesome at what they're doing, and I wouldn't have hired them if I didn't think they couldn't have done it. And we've got awesome support now. We've got a full-time painter and converter with Lee, and we've got a full-time editor with Rob, and we're soon to have a full-time web developer. We have hired somebody, and so that'll come to fruition. She'll be starting in the next month, and so you can hope to start to see changes finally to the website. We had a web developer before, but he got seriously ill, and so that kind of put us behind quite a bit. And so finally that's coming to fruition. So we have the area to expand, and I'm not like leaving out Chris and Justin. I'm just talking about kind of the new areas that are growing. And so yeah, that's the challenge. The challenge is to turn it into a bigger brand that's bigger than just a couple guys. That's all about, like, we have this quality that we can kind of plug and play with different people. That's a challenge, because obviously any TV show or movie or network, they rely on personalities to really drive things home. Because all the tech stuff, a lot of that is, I wouldn't say replaceable to the sense that, oh yeah, Rob could easily be replaced by somebody else. But it's harder to find somebody with the skill set that has the personality, that loves the games, that'll be good on camera, that'll be good with the camera, that'll be good with the rules, all these things. It's a hard bundle to put together. Add to the fact that we're in Welland, Ontario, which is just a small city about an hour and a half away from Toronto, which is probably where we should be, but don't want to be because all our family is here, and that's always going to be a big factor in determining what we do. So that's the big challenge right now. I hope in 10, 20 years from now that Dave and I are just two of many, or maybe we're not even making videos, I'm not sure. It just depends what we grow into and what we decide that we want to do. But it has to grow beyond the two of us, because one day we'll want to retire and we'll want to be able to sell the business. So it's going very well. It's growing, revenues are growing, Vault members are growing. I've got a lot of support. Our YouTube channel's growing, our Facebook followers are growing. And what are our future plans? So the big thing for me, besides all the new shows that we're always trying to meddle around with and what games we're covering and not covering, on the business side of things, the big next thing for me is our whole process of taking somebody who's new to MiniWarGaming and turning them into a Vault member. And there's a big process that goes from that. When somebody first discovers our videos on Facebook or on YouTube or on Google, whatever they do, and then getting them to like us, and not just like us, like click the like button, but like us, like actually like us, build a relationship with them, and then onboard them, which means getting them to become a paid member that will help to grow our business. And so a big part of that is our website is very archaic, and so because it was created so many years ago, and so finally I'm hoping that over the next year you're going to see a total rehaul of the website, which will allow us to start to implement some other advertising and marketing features. And I don't mean like having advertising all over the website, I mean like more internal things to help us better deal with our customers, better communicate with them, help them to better find videos, to better use their Vault memberships, and overall to grow that area so that we can convert more people into Vault members. Because we have a lot of viewers, we have a lot of Vault members, we actually have quite a bit of Vault members. It's not a number that I want to share, just in case you're curious, I'm sorry, I know that a lot of people would want to know, but just for right now, it's just not something we're ready to do. But compared to how many viewers we have, there are tons more viewers than there are Vault members, which means there's a huge opportunity to grow. We just have to show them that, because the price is definitely not the main prohibiting factor. Like if you buy the silver membership for 45 to 50 bucks a year Canadian, so it's like $40 American, or 25 pounds, 25 British pounds. I'm not sure what all the conversion rates are. It's not, when you factor that in as a yearly cost, that is not expensive. It's just not. So if somebody doesn't buy it and they tell me it's because the price is too high, then I know that I just haven't convinced them of the value. That's the bigger thing. And so I know that we have a good product, and now it's just a matter of, we're always trying to improve the product. That's a constant process of making better shows and making better videos. And now it's just a matter of now bringing the technology of the website and the web to put all those things together. So that's my next focus, is really trying to get that all in place, so we can really grow the business. Because I have this feeling that there's a lot of opportunity to grow it much more rapidly than we are. Even though we are growing at a nice pace, I want it to grow even faster, just because I'm impatient. So there you go. If you had several times that you tried, now I just answered 3 of your questions. The Uninvisible Man 1. Matt, are there any house rules for the studio? No alcohol, no cussing, no pets, no inappropriate clothing, outside of calendar photo shoots, of course. Nobody allowed in unless either you or Dave are on the premises, that sort of thing. So when you say house rules, you mean like business rules, because house rules you would think more like rules of the game. Well, we don't have like this huge, because we've kind of grown organically from a small number of people to still a small number of people, we haven't run into very many issues that we have to like formalize a lot of these things. The guys know where we stand. Like they know, of course, no alcohol, because that's just a normal business thing. You don't drink while you're working. Cussing, of course, we don't have a strict rule not to do it, but we do have a strict rule that it's not on video. And so for the most part, I don't hear much. I do hear some, of course, but on video for sure, no. And so you find that. No pets. We don't really have a rule of no pets. No inappropriate clothing. We haven't really had to discuss that except for maybe a couple instances of shorts that are too short, but that haven't really been a problem. Nobody allowed in unless either you or Dave are on the premise. No, everybody has keys. If the thing is, these people are being trusted with expensive cameras and rooms full of very expensive miniatures. And if we can't trust them with that, then I don't want them to work for me, because there's lots of times that they have to work when I'm not here, or on Saturdays, or in evenings, or just when we're out of sight. And these guys could easily steal stuff. They could easily do that. So if I can't trust them to be able to be in here alone and not steal stuff, then I can't employ them. So that's a big thing. So I don't want to have this huge rigid thing of how you get in and out and signing in. It would bog things down. So yeah, so it is more informal. ABPBM, Matt, I love the start of your 30K versus 30K battle reports, but they have slowly decreased over time. Are you struggling to fit them in, and what are your future plans for them? Thanks in advance. No, I definitely know what you're talking about. We are trying to get more 30K done. The problem with 30K is, once again, volunteers coming in, because most volunteers come in and play 40K. But we do have, I think you're going to start to, at the time that you wrote this, what was it, 4 days ago, we had put up a 30K. There's going to be a 30K coming out this coming Monday. And I believe we'll have 30K for the following Monday. My goal is to have a weekly 30K show. Although the funny thing is, when we put out a weekly 30K show, we get complaints, people saying, I want more 40K. And people are like, well, 30K is 40K. They're like, no, it's just Space Marines versus Space Marines. Which it obviously isn't always, although a lot of times it is. But we do have armies like Solar Auxilia, Mechanicum, and Imperial Cult. And then, of course, some Xenos races, if you modify them, can fit the bill as well. And so my goal is a weekly 30K show. That we are trying to do that, because that show does well. It gets good views and good vault signups, so I definitely want to continue doing it. But there is always a struggle of getting the players together. Now, we do have each other to play against, but we're often busy playing against each other, trying to get other games done, or against volunteers. So my goal is weekly 30K. Whether we'll always get that or not, well, that'll remain to be seen. Fletchcraft, Matt, I loved your Deathwatch campaign. I think it was a great success. I agree, and it was. I suppose similar campaigns with less characters, for example, one for each player, would give opportunities for character development. How about making Inquisition campaigns with members of Inquisitorial retinue, one member for each employee, and you as an Inquisitor? Well, I couldn't be the Inquisitor because you need to have a GM, so I couldn't really do that. But I have been thinking about those. One thing that I want to do, this kind of goes back to the original question from Unpure about what other narrative campaigns. One I failed to mention was a Space Hulk one. Now, I don't mean playing the Space Hulk board game, because that's just simple, it's fun, but it's just not a lot to it. But I mean, I watched the trailer for the Space Hulk Deathwing game that's coming out, and I instantly wanted to make a narrative campaign that looked like that. Because it broke the traditional, like, everything is a narrow hallway kind of thing, and they walked into what could have easily been a cathedral that is just on a planet, but it's inside of a spaceship. And the fact that there's all these spaceships mashed together, it's kind of like Augustine Station for our Deathwatch campaign, where I had a reason for them to have pretty much any kind of biosphere and any kind of race that they're facing. Because Space Hulks, obviously they're usually rife with Gene Stealers or with Orcs, but they could really have anything. There could be Eldar Wraith stuff that have awoken and are walking around. You could have a Necron ship buried somewhere deep in there, and some of the things are awakening, or you could really have anything. And so it would be a really cool campaign, and I could use the random item generator as they walk around and find stuff. So I really want to make a campaign. That'll probably be the next one if I'm still enthusiastic about it after the one I'm currently working on, which means you won't see it till, like, I don't know, October or maybe later, because my wife is due in September, so that might put things back a little bit. But and I want Adam to make terrain. We're gonna conquer the looking like it's inside without using the Zone Mortalis. I love the Zone Mortalis tiles, but we've used them a lot, and so I got a mosquito bite here. Sorry, and so I'm bored of seeing them. That doesn't mean we're gonna stop using them, of course, but I don't want an entire campaign inside of the Zone Mortalis. It's a cool set, but it is limited in its functionality, and I want more of an open thing. But whether it would be a Deathwatch campaign inside of a Space Hulk, or like Deathwing or some Space Marine chapter, I love the idea of it just being a small band of guys just basically making their way through with some reinforcements along the way, obviously, for the guys who die. and have some serious upgrading and some serious individualization. Because I do like the idea almost of having one guy per player, but I don't think we'll be able to pull that off just because, once again, that requires everybody to play. But having one player or two players play just like 5 to 10 guys, I think the amount of customization with just in the 5-man Deathwatch squad had a good mix to it without requiring too much. Because otherwise you start to enter into the role-playing game area rather than miniatures. Miniature wargame area where you're only controlling one guy at a time, and that works fine for role-playing games. I don't think it'd work quite as well for a tabletop game like 40K. Rhinoc, Matt, are you planning any of the Storytime style campaigns anytime soon? Wow, a lot of questions about campaigns. Obviously, people like them. And the answer is yes, that this next campaign that I'm planning would have Storytimes attached to them. And I'm planning on trying to improve the Storytimes as well by having like shots of miniatures and stuff like that while I'm talking, rather than just you looking at my wonderfully pretty face. They are the best. Thank you, Rhinoc. Also, any chance of old characters returning? It would be interesting to see them like in a TV show season format, with returning characters added to the new ones. I do want to do that. I feel like we've kind of created this mini wargaming universe with like Knum leading his Necrons and the High Fleet. Wow, I forgot the name of my High Fleet. It's been that long. It starts with Char. Wow, brain fart right there. It's gonna come back to me, and I'm gonna blurt it out later in the sit and talk. Charon. High Fleet Charon. Wow, whatever. I'll have to look it up. I can't believe I've forgotten that. But we have that High Fleet. We've got the obviously Khrushchev. We've got the Sentinels of the Forge, Mini Wargaming Space Marine chapter, with their various the characters there. Some trapped with Tracing the Infinite, others other places. And it would be really cool to have crossovers there. Now, I have done that in the past, like the World Engine that we did a long time ago had the return of some of the characters from Storms of Ixia. Unfortunately, they didn't do much. That's the problem with an unscripted game like this. We could, like, a character can just by happenstance become awesome in a campaign, and then you could use him in your next one, give him all sorts of special rules, and then he just sucks and dies right away. But that's okay, I guess. But it would just be cool to see. See, in a TV show, they have obviously more control over who lives and who dies. And so yeah, I do plan on trying to have some crossover and stuff there. All right, the Crook 88. Hi Matt, so happy to see Beat Map Batrips again. What's the schedule with these? I'm going to make as many as I can. Will it go back to each staff getting their own show? I'm not sure about that yet. We've kind of been running an experiment with combining everybody into the Warhammer 40K Battle Report show. And obviously Dave's been doing his banter bat reps too. But I've been watching the vault signups for it compared to other stuff and just trying to figure out what's the best way to do it. Because like I said before, I don't want the Mini Wargaming necessarily to be about me and Dave. We want it to be about 40K Battle Reports, 30K Battle Reports, War Machine, all that kind of stuff. But and so we just tried that out. But it seems like it's a better idea, at least for me, to have a Beat Map Bat Rep show. For the other guys, the stats it's a little harder to say whether Steve's Warhammer 40K Battle Reports did better than Steve's Gaming with the Mountain. But it is something I'm going to revisit. I want to do Beat Map Bat Reps for a little while and then compare the numbers, and then we can start making a decision whether we want each guy to have their own show as well. So we shall see. And I think I answered your other questions. Overmind333. Hey Matt, I'm very happy of the start of the new Beat Map Bat Rep seasons. Will we see Tyrannids back in your equipment? I just played a game with them yesterday. As I love Nids and play them, it would be great to see them back in your hands. Yeah, I just played yesterday, and so, which yesterday being Tuesday, I'm filming this on Wednesday, so it'll be a few days ago. So you should see those in a Beat Map Bat Rep coming up in the next week or two. Descary. Hey Matt, great videos. The Gorka Morka video content is fantastic. My question is, what do you think the future of the Tyrannids holds, and what would you like to see? Do you think Games Workshop is going to make a new codex, or is everything fine as it is? Well, they could use an update. Their power level is kind of low, except for unless you play them super cheese in just a very specific way, namely Flyrants. Yes, I'd love to see the Tyrannids updated. They need to consolidate all those supplements into one book, into a new codex, because right now I think I'm looking up 7 or 8 books, and on average each game that I play I need to reference 3 or 4 different books, so that's kind of a pain. They do need an update more than just a supplement with new stuff. My biggest frustration is also something that's always been a frustration with Games Workshop's rules, and that is internal balance within a codex. Like, for example, I want to play with the Maliceptor, I want to play with the Toxicrene, I want to play with Trigons, but they just suck. They just suck so bad. And maybe somebody's found the one way to use them, but I don't like playing my army one way. I like to be able to throw it in and just have it be as effective as it's supposed to be at its points cost, whether that's super effective or less effective, but that can be balanced somewhat by points. And so, yeah, I'm just finding those, and amongst other things too, like Raveners and even Gene Stealers. It's a disappointment too that the new Gene Stealer cult, the new FAQ just came out with a draft FAQ, and before the Gene Stealer cult was Battle Brothers with Tyrannids. That's how they came out. They said, how do they ally? They said they ally the same way as Tyrannids, and so that would imply that they're come the apocalypse with everybody, and Tyrannids are Battle Brothers with Tyrannids, and so Gene Stealer cult would be Battle Brothers with Tyrannids, but now they're going to be allies of convenience. They weren't that good to start with, like, okay, but now those independent characters can't join the Tyrannid squads. And some people might be, well, that makes sense fluff-wise because they don't really work together, but they do. When the Tyrannids arrive, they take over the Gene Stealer cult, so it's weird that they're not Battle Brothers, but whatever. The Gene Stealer cult was an interesting update, but it's not really an update to the Tyrannids because of that, is what I'm trying to say. So they could, a lot of their stuff is fine, but I think what they lack that everybody else has, and this is the unfortunate thing that they've done with everybody else, not so much to what they haven't done with Tyrannids, and that is all these new Decurion-style detachments and formations, where you get these super awesome bonuses for bringing the new detachment, and they still have to run their old combined arms attachment, essentially. I know they have a lot of formations too, but they don't really have a Decurion that kind of puts them all together and gives them some nice bonuses. And most of the formations they're okay, but except for a few, they don't have any incredible bonuses. And so that's more an issue, I think, with what they've done with other armies, because I don't like all those Decurion-style detachments. I think one easy way to fix the problem that they have with all their power creep with their detachments and formations is to attach a points cost to those detachments and formations, much like they do or did with Apocalypse formations. With Apocalypse formations, you paid the points cost of the models, plus you paid a surcharge of 50 points or 100 points or 200 points to get the special rules of the formation. And so you upgraded them to the formation. Whereas with all the detachments and formations that Games Workshop has been doing for 40K for the past couple years, you don't pay extra. You just have to buy the models, and magically they're better when you use them together in this formation. And that was fine for the early stuff when they weren't super powerful. But then we started getting with stuff like the Necron Decurion, the Tau Hunter contingent, and now all these new Space Marine detachments, which are a lot of fun to play with, unless you're playing against somebody who doesn't really have access to that kind of power level, like Orcs or Tyrannids or, well, Sisters of Battle, but they're more, I know people want them updated, but they are more a secondary army anyways. But even they could use it too. Or even Imperial Guard. Imperial Guard don't really have access to it as much, except for some interesting formations. And so I think even if all they did was add that kind of thing, it's unfortunate that it would be like a power creep thing. It just makes them more powerful, which leaves other armies behind, like Chaos Space Marines. But give them a Decurion. Also, I would really love to see some better psychic stuff for them. Right now they have access to one psychic tree, and that goes from a previous edition of having access to all of them, plus their own. And that's a big change. They're not supposed to be like the psychically powerful army, but they do have the power of the hive mind. And so I'd love to see that branch out to 3 different psychic trees, at least, and have one be like offensive, one be like defensive, one be like some sort of utility, one be all about synapse, one be all about... You have a lot of options of what they could use their psychic powers for, because they do have the potential to be a really good psychic army with their Zoanthropes, Hive Tyrants, Tervagons, all those really contributing a lot of warp charges. They can do really well. And they do have good powers right now with the Zoanthropes, not so much with the Maliceptor. And then with their basic powers of the Hive Mind, they're not too bad. So I'd love to see Psychic expanded for them. I'd love to see a Decurion-style detachment for them and some new formations that kind of bring them together into a cool kind of way that they can be played, with a few, obviously more than one core choice, because unlike Necrons or Space Marines, they don't have this regimented way that they have to fight. But their core choices should obviously more focus on the small Gribblies, led by some leader beasts, and then their auxiliary choices would throw in the heavy supports and the other elites, and have a cool Zoanthrope formation, even with the Maliceptor. I know they have one right now, but even better than that one. That would make the Maliceptor more powerful. So that's what I'd like to see with them. I think that they could do that. Throw in a Gargantuan for them as well would be great to kind of offset the just the other Gargantuans and super heavies that everybody's getting. And then throw in some anti-air beyond Flyrants and the Hive Crone. Yeah. Anti-air would be really nice. Some ground to air is what I'm talking about. Like same kind of chassis as the Biovore or the Exocrine. Just have like they're already these artillery things. So all you have to do is modify the model so that they just develop these like anti-air things. And I think that would be really cool. So there's a lot they could do to make the Tyrannids more interesting and more competitive in the gameplay. And those are just a few of the areas that they could do. Okay, we're out of time. Thank you so much for all your questions. I'm going to continue for another 30 minutes for our Vault members, and you can click the link in the video description below to go and watch that now. Don't forget to leave your comments as well in the comment section for Josh for next week. And as always, happy wargaming.